I'm Ron Smith. I have an organization called Rogue Valley Property Rights because I understand how crucial property rights are. This meeting is also sponsored by the Josephine County Farm Bureau. They have a table back there. And also the Josephine County Republican Women's Club. They're back there. Both those guys, those organizations help sponsor this. So I want to lay out, we have also the charter petitions in the back. Take a look at that and maybe get a signature on that if you're a Josephine County voter, registered voter. We could use some donations to help pay for this venue. So if you can, donations are greatly appreciated. In America, we're in trouble. I think that's why most of you are here tonight. You realize that we're in trouble. And the reason we're in trouble is Plato had a great saying. He said, the price good men pay for indifference to public affairs is to be ruled by evil men. That's where we're at today. And why? Because our indifference to public affairs. I'm glad you're all here tonight because you want to help our issues in the county. So, this is getting recorded, so this will be online, and I hope you just get it and share it all over the place. Because what's going to be taught tonight is very important. So the way the meeting's going to go tonight, we're going to go for about an hour and 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Then we'll take a break, get up, mosey around, stretch your legs, and then we'll finish up with about an hour and 15 minutes. What we hope to do in the first part of this meeting is tell you who, what, and where, what's behind these issues we face today. And then in the second half of the meeting, we're going to show how we can fight back and make a difference. One person, the whole history of the world revolves around individuals that took action. Not large crowds, individuals. So never think that what you do doesn't count. Every person's initiative counts. So it's my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce a gentleman I've followed for 20 years. I got involved in this stuff way back in 1996 over different issues, and around the year 2000 I started digging deep. I started doing some heavy research. That's when I found Mr. Tom Deweese. Tom is president of the American Policy Center. We brought him all the way out here from Virginia to give this presentation because as far as I'm concerned, he's one of the nation's foremost authorities on property rights. And property rights, whether you know it or not, is the key to our freedom and liberty. Without your property rights, you have no rights. So I don't want to take any more of his time. I want to introduce to you a great man, a great patriot, Mr. Tom Deweese.
Thank you very much. Everybody hear me okay? They told me that if I took the red pill, I would be able to see reality, the truth of what is really going on all around us. But you know what? I just happened to have a red pill, and I took it. Like traveling through time, things rushed forward. I grew dizzy, and then I saw things around me that became crystal clear. Suddenly, I could see that the American people in their every action are being ruled, regulated, restricted, licensed, registered, directed, checked, inspected, measured, numbered, counted, rated, stamped, censored, authorized, admonished, refused, prevented, drilled, indoctrinated, monopolized, extorted, robbed, hoaxed, fined, harassed, disarmed, dishonored, fleeced, exploited, assessed, and taxed to the point of suffocation and desperation. And then more details started shooting out like fireworks. Policies, politicians, pronouncements, power grabs. Every day, government at all levels grows more out of control, more intrusive in our personal lives, more of a threat to private property, all in total and flagrant disregard of the expressed will of the electorate. Freedom's enemy today is already in your house, controlling how you live, and you don't notice it. You've gotten used to it. The enemy is already in your mind, controlling how you think, and you don't notice that either. That's all because of a simple phrase that controls all of public policy today. How many times have you heard your elected representatives, if you were complaining about something, say, well, that's just the way it's done now. Everybody is doing it this way. And the thought process ends. Those behind it are driving toward their goal of global control. And they have figured out a way to get you to voluntarily surrender your liberties and actually help them to control you. Now, what could be such a powerful force that can get the population to help destroy their own culture and liberty, leading to personal destruction? Fear. That's the weapon. Fear of what? The fear of environmental Armageddon. The tactics have given the globalist left the ability to shoot down any opposition. How many times have I had an environmentalist get in my face and say, it doesn't matter how many rights you think you have if you don't have a planet to stand on. Ooh. Ladies and gentlemen, they are determined. They have no intention of losing. When they do lose, they get more determined to win next time. And they use every known trick and tactic in their arsenal to assure that they aren't wiped out by some red wave. Yep, they have an agenda, and they have a goal with very specific plans to impose it. And the dirty secret they do not want you to know is that their agenda has absolutely nothing to do with protecting the environment. But the scare tactic works so well. For decades, global leftists have been quietly and systematically putting everything in place, from control of the news media, to control of the economic system, to control of the election system, to control of those who do get elected. This has allowed them to turn once red states into blue. You feel that at home? One step at a time. It's happened over and over again, and once they achieve that goal, they grab the reins and they refuse to let go. The plain truth is this: those who believe in a limited government have lacked such vision to push for a specific agenda for preserving liberty. The determination and enthusiasm just isn't there. We run a campaign, we win or we lose. Well, whatever, on to the next. We just want to be left alone. But under the environmental excuse, the leftist mob has entrenched powerful tools of destruction. They ignore facts, they deny logic, they attack reason and reality, and they present a false science to justify their actions. You must understand, the policies that we face today are not just random ideas from some misguided politician. These policies are in place and are being imposed through every agency of the federal government, and they move it right on down to the state and the local governments. The question on everybody's mind: can we stop it? Can we ever restore the republic of our founding fathers? First, before we can effectively fight, we have to fully understand what that agenda is. Obviously, I don't have enough time today to give you the full history of its development and all the players involved, or every single detail of how it's being imposed, especially a lot of things that are right here in your local community. But what I do know is that these policies are the same everywhere. May have a different name, may come at it a little bit different in a certain way, but it is the same everywhere. But I want to give you enough detail to know where it came from, and most importantly, how it will directly affect you. And then we can talk about what to do about it. Of course, the United Nations is at the center, pretending to be a club of nations focusing on world peace initiatives. The UN's members impose treaties on nations present policy guidelines, and provide a forum for debate. It all sounds so democratic. You know, the UN was put together with the idea that after World War II, that we wouldn't have any more wars. Since the United Nations has been in place, we have had more wars than any time in human history, and I'm not sure any one of those wars ever ended. We have diplomats. Right. In 1992, the UN presented the master plan called Agenda 21. Climate change became the mantra. Nearly every policy coming out of every level of government today is based on the excuse of combating climate change. The weapon to combat such a threat is called sustainable development. In reality, sustainable development is simply a trigger word designed to get you to voluntarily surrender your liberties. Today it is used everywhere to defining farming practices, energy policy, manufacturing, and on and on and on. If it's not sustainable, it's not worthy of your attention. Sustainable, sustainable, sustainable. People hear that word and their eyes just glaze over and they comply. I've got to save the environment. Every time you hear the word sustainable, understand that it has absolutely nothing to do with protecting the environment. It's the actual blueprint to subvert current governments to global control. To fully understand what a massive threat this is to everything in your life, the very best description of sustainable development was provided by one of its most powerful opponents. A good friend of mine, the recently deceased Rosa Koire. She was the head of Democrats against Agenda 21. In most cases, Rosa was liberal about a lot of policies, but she saw the threat of sustainable and Agenda 21, and she wrote this definition. UN Agenda 21, sustainable development, is the action plan to inventory and control all land, all water, all minerals, all plants, all animals, all construction, all means of production, all information, all energy, and all human beings in the world. Inventory and control. And that's exactly what they're doing. Today, we have Agenda 21, we have Agenda 2030, we have the Green New Deal. Now, they're all exactly the same plan. Each one, as they bring it out, they get a little more detailed, they get a little more honest about it. And I'll tell you what, many times have called me a conspiracy theorist, that I'm spreading misinformation. Ladies and gentlemen, I am not creative enough to make this stuff up. All I've ever done is quote them. And it's out there. It's very clear what they intend to do. All of these are the same plan. Now, and of course, if you disagree with all that, you know, that this is all good stuff, then the Southern Poverty Law Center will continue to insist that these plans are all just voluntary, they're just suggestions to give you a smart way to live. Anyone who disagrees with that is just a conspiracy theorist, of course. But today, the real threat is coming from a plan called the Great Reset. What is it, and who's behind it? The Great Reset is a massive plan to completely reorganize the entire structure of the planet, economically, socially, environmentally, and politically. Nothing will be untouched by that plan. Global governance, control from the top, is the goal. The Great Reset is designed to destroy our national independence and our entire system of government and replace it with a top-down control. Sustainable is the guiding force to determining policy under that plan. Klaus Schwab, the creator of the plan, defines the Great Reset as a means of addressing the weaknesses of capitalism. And he went on to tell us that the COVID lockdown really showed us what those weaknesses are. He wrote this diatribe called COVID-19, The Great Reset. And he says that this book details what they learned from the climate lockdown and again, as he said, the weaknesses of capitalism. Really? You know what? The lockdown started in, March of 2020. This book came out in August of 2020. How much did he learn in 5 months? This Superman was able to write this book in 5 months. Now, I've written 3 books, and I know that first of all, you got to come up with the concept. Then you have to actually do the research for it. Then you have to, come up with the article and write, to write it. Then you got to find a publisher and an editor and all that kind of stuff. This Superman did it in 5 months. Or he's a stinking liar. He wrote it before the pandemic. It was the guideline. He wrote in that piece of garbage, no industry or business will be spared from the impact of these challenges. Millions of companies risk disappearing, and many industries face an uncertain future. A few will thrive. Who do you think those are going to be? You think it's going to be the mom and pop store down the street? Or is it going to be Walmart and Amazon? The ones playing ball. Now you're watching these woke corporations that are jumping on board. That's because we've seen them losing billions of dollars as people have stood up against it. But again, another one comes out and another one comes out. And you're thinking, what is wrong with these people? Don't they understand that they have to run a business? You've got to care about your customer base. Well, not in the Great Reset. The free markets no longer rule commerce or control profits. We have something called ESG, Environment, Social Equity, Government. That's what it stands for. ESG represents every single aspect of our society. And we talk about Agenda 2030, 17 goals in Agenda 2030 are basically the ESG formula. Now, consumers are not important. They will tell us what we're going to buy, what's available. And by the way, the ESG guidelines, well, as I said, are the 17 goals of Agenda 2030. And those 17 goals, which they talk about being for the environment, they have very little anything to say about the environment. The 17 goals are dictating economics, energy, and living conditions. Companies will have to report their ESG climate information to the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, for a climate risk assessment. Biden has already ordered the SEC to require public trading companies to not only calculate their own greenhouse emissions, but those of their suppliers, their customers, and logistics operators. Every company will be affected by this. As they collect all of this information, and they put it all under the terms of climate change and CO2 capture and all of that, that all becomes part of their personal record in industry. Morgan Stanley, Merrill Lynch, the Bank of America are already working on these policies. It's now being prepared to use as a weapon to force your compliance to the Great Reset, your personal compliance. And as usual, it's all hidden under the labels of climate change, environmental correctness, sustainable ESG. Nearly every bank is now preparing for the switch to digital currency as the Biden cabal moves forward with plans to end cash. We've already experienced the effects of Biden shutting down the nation's oil supply in the name of climate change. Next, the Biden regime has issued an executive order to lock away massive amounts of land in the U.S. in a plan that is called 30 by 30, locking away 30% of all the land in this country by the year 2030. We actually have documents showing they actually mean 50%. Imagine this now. farmers, mining industry, timber industry, people who have ranches out in there. All of that. They, first of all, one of the major goals that they have got to accomplish to put all this in place is to get people off the rural areas and herd them into the cities. Because in the cities, they can be controlled. People who live in more rural communities are much more independent and able to take care of themselves than people who live in the big cities like New York and Philadelphia and so forth. And those are the people who sit there and think their food comes from Safeway. That's what they want. In addition to taking that land out of food production, there's a hard drive for the establishment of millions of acres of solar farms and wind farms. Wind and solar is a joke. It produces next to nothing in the way of energy. After the global forces have reached their goal to fully eliminate all of the other resources of energy to nothing but wind and solar, at best it will produce about 4% of the energy that we need. You think about that. And in the meanwhile, as they're doing this to our system, for energy, everything's being converted to electricity. Our cars, our stoves, everything to electricity. But yet, it's not going to produce any. That'll be a great day, won't it? What it will do is they put these wind and solar panels out there. You put out the wind towers. It'll wipe out the birds in the sky and cover and destroy millions of acres of needed farmland, causing a massive food shortage. Now, in the name of protecting the environment, I want you to picture this. This is their plan. Getting rid of all the other sources of energy, and only wind and solar. We will have millions of acres of land underneath solar panels where nothing grows. And also, to put those in place, they have to chop down a whole lot of trees. And, the sun can't reach underneath them. Meanwhile, the wind towers, which could be higher than a skyscraper in New York City, is wiping out the birds and anything that flies. And Bill Gates wants to put a layer over the earth to lock out the sun. Everything on earth needs the sun, apparently except Bill Gates. And now we understand what's wrong with him. Now, and for example, the wind industry in Scotland, tiny little Scotland, has cleared over 17,000 acres for wind farms. To do it, they've wiped out 14 million trees to save the planet. You've got to start laughing. A few years ago, I was thinking about trying to start a little radical organization on the side that all they did was show up at the public meetings where these idiots are talking and just sit there and laugh like crazy. They would get off the stage as fast as they can. I was going to have some fun. Yeah. All of this, cutting down all the trees, covering the earth, covering the sun, all that, and you just have to wonder, where are the real environmentalists? Remember when we called them tree huggers? Where are they now? In Virginia, where I reside, there is a radical environmental group that controls not only the county I live in, but about 9 other counties. And even the elected officials sit there and go, what do you want us to do? Man. And they're called the Piedmont Environmental Council. And they have a bumper sticker that you could see all over the county on cars. The bumper sticker says, farmland lost is farmland lost forever. I agree with that. But apparently, they are only worried about farmland lost to builders, developers. They're not worried about their own idiotic, unworkable green schemes. This hypocrisy of the environmental movement is massive. There is no truth to it. No matter what they tell you that they say they're doing, their policies cause more damage to the environment than any factory in the world ever thought of. But they're not done. In the cities, a major effort is now underway to eliminate zoning protections for single-family neighborhoods. This is part of the Sustainable Smart Growth Plan to eliminate private property and put all of us in stack and pack high-rises where our energy use and our transportation is fully controlled, sustainable. As I said, getting into the cities, having everybody packed in there together, they can control your thermostat, they can control your transportation, where you go, how you go, everything about your life, they can control it and give you a little handout once in a while to keep you going. For decades, urban planners have adhered to the mantra that urban sprawl increases pollution, more driving time to work and shopping, and the escalating consumption of scarce farmland and open space. Now I wonder, scarce farmland? It's getting scarcer all the time by the wind and solar panels, by all the stuff they're putting out. That's what's making farmland scarce. Urban planning to implement smart growth supposedly corrects all these problems. Portland, Oregon, was the original poster child for smart growth. The first step was to put a line around the city, the urban growth boundary. No growth would take place outside of that line. That would be urban sprawl. I always called it home. I don't know. Polls show that 85% of Americans want to live in single-family homes and neighborhoods. But once the boundary is in place, it becomes a controlled living space. They will dictate how you're going to live there. Private property rights cease to exist. I was telling somebody earlier today, a few years ago, I was in New York City for a conference. That the purpose of the conference was to give people who have things to say to the media and so forth, we could pitch media. There was national media there were local media. We could go in and pitch them to get on their programs. The View was there. I didn't get in their line. But I was talking to a gentleman who had his own radio show in New York City. And I was trying to explain to him about smart growth and the destruction of property rights and so forth. And he just wasn't getting it. Now, we were in this room on top of a hotel, a big ballroom with great big windows there. And out there was Manhattan. You could see it as far as you could see, all these tall buildings and everything in Manhattan. And I finally looked at him in a little frustration. I said, turn around and look out that window. And he turns around and looks out, and I said, as far as the eye can see, there is not a single property right in your vision. He turned around, looked at me, and said, we got to get you on. This is the way it is in the cities. After almost 2 decades under the Smart Growth Plan, Portland's land area has barely increased at all, but the population inside the boundary has increased by almost 80%. Fire and hospital services have decreased, and now they're claiming a housing shortage crisis. Oh yeah. Who created that, idiot? Oregon is the first state to ban zoning protections for single-family homes. The plan is to eliminate such zoning and allow the building of affordable apartment buildings in those neighborhoods. This will destroy the value of the homes and the personal wealth of the owners. Smart growth. Our founding fathers understood perfectly well that private property ownership was the key to individual wealth. And as they encouraged that, as they made sure that that's what Americans had, this is why we became the envy of the world. Why in a very short period of time we passed ancient societies like overnight. Because we had private property rights. And here we are working now to destroy the very thing that build wealth here. But things are moving forward. We have a new term for smart growth, 15-minute cities. The planners have just gotten a lot more honest about their true goal. They are calling it the new normal for downtown. The goal, just like smart growth, is to bring density into downtown and out of those rural neighborhoods. In the process, they are creating entire developments of rental space and housing units. Private property is becoming history, and so are cars. But think of all the good things that this will bring to your daily life. All necessary amenities will be within a short walk or a bike ride or public transportation. There's an exciting thought. Our lives will be more convenient, less stressful, and more sustainable. Now, as all of this is being enforced in your communities, how about your personal choices? You've witnessed the unrelenting drive for a complete digital lifestyle where everything about you is online, from your bank accounts to all that you purchase at the store to your posts on social media. For example, do your buying habits as recorded on your credit card and your online bank accounts reveal that you are a good little environmentalist? Go away, bug. This is for people. And add to that, what will happen is you're going to get a profile of you is going to be created, and it's based on your personal ESG score. Add to that the kind of food you buy. Perhaps you purchase beef, but not enough vegetables. That may indicate that you are not living a healthy, sustainable lifestyle. How much electricity do you use? Where have you traveled, and how did you get there? How many buildings do you own? What kinds of things do you invest in? Each of these things represents your climate footprint and your dedication to social justice. Are you a proper citizen in this reorganization of human society? MasterCard is promoting a carbon limit credit card that quantifies the CO2 emissions generated from each transaction. The card comes with a monthly CO2 limit, and it shuts down charges if you exceed it. Now, here is how all of this will personally affect you. Each of these things will be regularly entered into your profile, and each one will affect your personal credit rating. A low credit rating will prevent you from getting a loan to buy a car, obtaining a mortgage, or even a business loan. This will effectively cut you out of society, and if you don't change your habits and your personal beliefs. When paper money is replaced with digital currency, your wealth can disappear with a single keystroke, should you fail to conform. Red China's been using this system for a long time. Let's go ask some Chinese how it's working for them. Universal income will finally make us all equally poor, and under control of whatever gang is in charge at the government plantation. If you're a good little great resetter, the government will supply you with the things that you really need. It's not ownership. Perhaps just rent what you need with your government stipend. Isn't that a wonderful thought? Now, perhaps you're beginning to understand Klaus Schwab's promise that you will own nothing and be happy. Schwab calls it a circular economy. You won't own a car, you won't own a home, or carry money in your pocket. Now here's an example of how that will work. A clothing store sells shirts for profit. The shirts have a value because they are needed in society. But in the circular economy, the clothing store will not sell the shirts, they will rent them. Then, when you return the shirts, the stores will create a second-hand product to continue renting them. The same will go for furniture, appliances, and reading glasses. Not sure how they tend to deal with things like toothpaste and toilet paper, but these are creative guys, and I'm sure that they've got a plan for that too. Let me share this quote with you and see if this doesn't sound like the language that many of you, your local officials, are using right now to impose development programs like smart growth. If you've gone to any of the public meetings and so forth, then see if this doesn't sound like what you've heard. Quote, "The chaotic growth of cities will be replaced by a dynamic system of urban settlement. The region is formed by the economic interdependence of its development. The region has a single system of transportation, a centralized administration, and a united system of education and research." Does that sound familiar? Any of you who have gone to public meetings? We hear about the chaotic growth, the chaotic growth. That's why we've got to have these planning commissions and so forth. Well, this particular growth, quote, was written by a Soviet-Russian architect named Alexei Gutanov in 1968 in a document entitled "The Ideal Communist City." Could it get any plainer, any clearer? Under the Great Reset, there will be no independent sovereign nations. That's the force behind the invasion of our borders with the illegals pouring over. There will be no democratic representation. All decisions will be handed down from the top. Appointed regionalism is the new representation, destroying the ability for local control by local elected officials that you put in place to run your community the way you wanted it run. Klaus Schwab's daughter, Nicole, speaking in a leaked video of a panel discussion at one of their meetings in Switzerland in 2020, admitted that COVID was simply a precursor for coming climate change lockdowns. She said that COVID proved the world could strongly shift once people felt an extreme threat to their livelihoods, and that policymakers now have more power post-COVID, and change, the changing need not be incremental. The drive for full control is going full speed ahead. Social equity will rule every decision. Corporate social responsibility, all companies agreeing to help enforce the plan or disappear. Beef consumption stopped. Farming practices forced to comply with strict sustainable rules in which only corporate farms will be able to afford the compliance. And they call me a conspiracy theorist. Tom, where do you get this idea that they're going to take away your car and control your food and so forth? Well, I just happened to come across this last week this particular report. There is something now, with the 15-minute cities, now we're going to have C40 cities. This has already been accepted by 14 major American cities as part of the globalist scheme to organize. And the group is called Cities Climate Leadership Group. And what they have targeted, an ambitious target they say, by the year 2030, 0 meat consumption in those cities, 0 dairy consumption in those cities, 3 new clothing items per person per year, 0 private vehicles, and 1 short-haul return flight less than 1,500 kilometers every 3 years per person. This is in their documents. And who are the 14 cities? Austin, Boston, Chicago, Houston, Los Angeles, Miami, New Orleans, New York City, Philadelphia, Phoenix, Portland, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., and Seattle. They've already signed on to this madness. And I'm the conspiracy nut. Well, who are the forces behind all of this? The most powerful global forces behind the agenda are, of course, the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, World Health Organization, and the Council on Foreign Relations. There are more, but those are the main ones, pulling the strings in the background. But working with or under them are more than 20,000 non-governmental organizations, we call them NGOs, that have flooded your local and state governments armed with money and political pressure. Each program has its own NGOs, which are experts at writing these program proposals and pressuring them for acceptance. And they know exactly which grants to apply for. They will bring it to your elected officials and say, hey, got it all right here in a box for you. Don't worry about the money. We got it all right there for you. Don't have to worry about anything. This happens every day in your local government. A lot of people don't really understand that these NGO forces spread their poison through the grant money. These groups, in fact, help write the grant programs, as I said, and they work with the federal agencies. For example, in my hometown of Newark, Ohio, we have in the center of town a courthouse. And this is where I cruised on Saturday night and so forth. We had the sharpest looking cars you ever saw in your life going around that square. And as we travel around, the mayor, the city council of Newark, needed to replace the infrastructure underneath there. There are wires and pipes and so forth, 100 years old. Makes sense. They needed to do something to fix that. And so they got a grant from the EPA. Written in that grant, oh yeah, they got the money to do the infrastructure, but it also said they had to eliminate every traffic light going around the square and replace it with a roundabout on each corner of the square. It's unrecognizable today. Totally useless, totally worthless. There's no reason for it. The millions of dollars spent to do that, but that was written into the grant by NGOs, I'm sure. So, now you may, a lot of people think that the grants are free money. I've heard city councilmen say, we've got to take these grants or we're cheating our citizens. That's their tax money. Read the grant before you take it. So, let's bring it all down to the local level and how they oppose these policies to make it all look like it's all planned by your local officials. Now, I've just covered a little bit of that. But we have the American Planning Association, is one of the largest of the planning groups with chapters in almost every single city. They are part of the Planners Network, so you may have planning groups by different names, but they're all basically working together. The Planners Network, which the APA is part of, in its statement of principles on its website says this, quote, "We believe planning should be a tool for allocating resources and eliminating the great inequalities of wealth and power in our society because the free market has proven incapable of doing this." Now compare that to the statement, to the definition of the Great Reset by Klaus Schwab, which he talked about the weakness of capitalism. This is what all of these planners, putting these things in place under the power of these NGOs, are doing. That's the goal. According to the American Institute of Planners, the present-day crew of planners draw no line between public and private property, believing that land use control should be vested in government and that public planners should have sole right to control the use of all land. The APA drives for social equity and climate change policy in their plans. This affects your private property, your transportation choices, including taxing miles traveled and reducing your reliance on coal and all that. Now, for years, I have charged that the American Planning Association uses Agenda 21 sustainable policy in their community planning. They have always denied it, saying it's all local. Then I discovered this little bit of information. In 1994, just 2 years after Agenda 21 was introduced, the American Planning Association published an article entitled, "How Sustainable is Our Planning?" The 5th paragraph of this article says, quote, "Within the past year, the President's Council on Sustainable Development has been organized to develop recommendations for incorporating sustainability into the federal government. Also, various groups have been formed to implement Agenda 21, a comprehensive blueprint for sustainable development that was adopted at the recent UN Earth Summit conference. In one paragraph, this document brings together the American Planning Association, Agenda 21, the UN's Earth Summit, Sustainable Development, the President's Council, and the NGO groups, all with the mission of implementing Agenda 21, and they admit that it's a comprehensive blueprint, just as I have said. This is what is going on in every community in this country, and the planning programs being put together. And this is what the APA and its fellow planners are telling you, that it's all local. But when you challenge them, they will lie through their teeth and hide their true intention. I actually kind of like messing with the APA because they're such cowards. They just run and hide and scared. A few years ago, as we began to expose the American Planning Association's true agenda, they panicked. They organized a boot camp, that's what they called it, a boot camp, to help planners. They brought all their planners around the country together in a meeting. They helped them change how they present their plans. The opening line of this report, entitled Glossary for the Public, says, quote, "Given the heightened scrutiny of planners by some members of the public, what is said or not said is especially important in building support for planning." The report covered how they must frame the message, saying, quote, "It is imperative that planners frame discussions about sustainability, regionalism, livability, and the like in a way that emphasizes the economic value, long-lasting benefits, and positive outcomes that result from good planning and implementation." And then they provided a long list of what they called trigger words, which, if used, they said, makes the critics see red. These include the words smart growth, stakeholders, sustainability, public visioning. There's a whole list of them. Of course, they will still intend to enforce those policies. They just use different words. Every time we've won a battle on them, they just change the words. Say, oh, this isn't that. Yeah. In other words, they are liars. They're working to hide their true purpose, and that's why I work to expose them and call for them to be thrown out of every town I can. You know, we went after them a few years ago. We ended up getting over 150 American cities to rescind their membership in ICLEI. And I'll tell you quickly, a good friend of mine who I'm working with now regularly, Craig Rucker from CFACT, goes to these international meetings. And Craig has an incredible sense of humor. And he sees the international head of ICLEI, the International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives, one of the organizations that helped write Agenda 21. He sees him, and he walks up and starts to talk to him. Doesn't tell him who he is. He just talks to him. And he kind of befriends him. It got to the point where when they were in a meeting, another room for a meeting, this guy from ICLEI would go, "Craig, come on over, have a seat." Craig, at one point, got bold, and he said to him, "What do you think about these guys, these organizations that are fighting you in the cities and so forth?" And the head of ICLEI International said, "Oh my God, we are terrified of those people. We can't stop them. We can't get new cities to join us." Craig instantly sent me an email and told me. Well, what you have to understand, they are not protectors of the environment. They are destroyers of human society. Now, am I saying that planning shouldn't be done? No, I'm not saying that. Of course not. It's necessary to look into the future, but you must be aware of where planning policy is coming from and what the agenda is, and read the grants. Every word in it. Don't just take somebody's word about what it's about. Read it. Your elected representatives are there to represent you. They have to ask the tough questions and put you first as they decide on plans for future development. And the number one line of defense should be your elected county sheriff. They are the only publicly elected law enforcement in the nation. First, property rights of individual owners must be protected. Private property ownership is the key to individual and community prosperity. I have learned after 30-some years of fighting this, sustainable policy cannot be imposed if private property is protected, because its whole goal is to destroy property rights. If you can get your city council to protect property rights, then you can begin to slow this stuff down. Now, if you're determined to protect property rights, then you need a good definition of what is private property. Too many people think that it just means a place where you pay to store your stuff. That's what it is, right there. Well, in the past, as this stuff began to come up, sustainable policies began to come up, the whole climate change thing, a lot of legal people began to understand that they did not have a good definition of property rights. And they were getting more and more cases on this. They had to do something. In the state of Washington, Supreme Court Justice Richard B. Sanders provided a definition for property rights. Let me give it to you. He said, quote, "Property in a thing consists not merely in its ownership and possession, but in the unrestricted right of use, enjoyment, and disposal. Anything which destroys any of the elements of property to that extent destroys the property itself. The substantial value of property lies in its use. If the right of use be denied, the value of the property is annihilated, and ownership is rendered a barren right." Now, in that definition, there is one word that blows the top of the skulls off of these global control freaks. Unrestricted. I will tell you, what I'm going to tell you is not a joke. It's absolutely true. They have gone to fight against this definition. In many cases, I had a state legislator try to put it in place in North Carolina, for example. Here's what they will say. If people have an unrestricted right of use of their property, somebody is going to put a smelly old pig farm next door to you. I'm not joking. That's exactly the excuse they were using. I've heard it over and over again. That a pig must be the most horrendous thing in their world. That's what they always use. Well, there's an answer to this. Since the beginning of human development, human society, there have been nuisance laws. If a neighbor is doing something on their property and it's damaging yours, first of all, you have the right to walk over there and say, "Charlie, can you turn that light off at night? It's shining in my bedroom window. Henry, can you turn that music down? Bobby, can you get that old junk car out of the front yard?" Now, if these guys are good people, they'll say, "Oh, yeah, sure, I'll take care of it." If they are jerks, you can take them to court under nuisance laws and fix it. It's neighbor to neighbor, and that's the way our society is supposed to be. You don't have these one-size-fits-all dictators that every little thing where they have absolutely no stake in your property at all, dictating to you what you can and cannot do. Neighbor to neighbor, that's the way it's got to be. Universal use of eminent domain is simply tyranny. It was never intended to allow government to just take your property. And the Constitution clearly states that if land must be taken, then it must pay the owner just compensation. And it's not for private projects, like the carbon capture pipeline out in Iowa and South Dakota and North Dakota. It's not for that. It's for you don't just take it willy-nilly because we decided to put a new project together. It is for something that absolutely has to be done to keep society running. That ain't it. Sustainable development and regional planning create a one-size-fits-all process to enforce a specific agenda. This is not local. Regional planning's real purpose is to gradually silence opposition. It greatly diminishes the power of locally elected government, where the people choose to determine the future of their community. Beware of conservation easements. Private NGO land trusts promote these to property owners, especially farmers, who are worried that developers are going to come and take their land. Now, I started asking a very specific question on this. If a farmer doesn't want to sell his land, how does a developer get it? Oh yeah, the local government, or the state government, whichever it is, granted them the use of the power of eminent domain to just take it. Who's the criminal here? Those elected officials need to protect you. You vote, you are the ones who put them in office. They've got to start protecting ownership as a protected, that's a sacred right. Now, I can give you endless list of properties that will have been taken through corrupt appointed government boards and agencies. They're playing games with dedicated NGO policies, and it has no place in a free nation. Now, Klamath Falls is a major example of what's going on there. It's an absolute criminal operation they're doing there. And right here in Josephine County, 68% of the land area is controlled by the U.S. Forest Service and the BLM. Such agencies and appointed boards do not make laws. Elected representatives do. How many times have I heard from elected officials, well, the regional board, the utilities board said, there's nothing we can do to stop this. Appointed boards are created by elected officials. Basically, they're to be the bureaucracies that put in place programs that they have passed and put in place. What kind of cowards are these people? They don't want to talk to you. They don't want to hear from you. They just want this excuse, well, the board says we can't do it. You're the boss. Tell the board what they're going to do. Just sit there like that and take that from them. And we're starting to win that battle in South Dakota. I'll tell you about it later. So now, after I have completely depressed you with all of these details, you're thinking, what do we do about it? How can we stop it? Can we stop it? I'm here to tell you that we can stop it. I've been fighting this battle for 40 years, and I've talked to a lot of empty rooms, and I have had lots of frustration. But recently, in the last few years, people are starting to get it. I always found in the past that people who weren't affected by the policies, didn't feel anything from it, didn't care. The ones who were affected, they were the ones that became our fiercest fighters. Now everybody is feeling it. And we've got people who have never been involved politically. We've got people who aren't even somebody you would consider a political compadre, are starting to stand up and say, what's going on? What can I do? I have never been more energized because we have opportunity now. So, I'm here to tell you that we can stop it. And in the second part of my presentation today, I'm going to give you some very basic ideas on how to start. But right now, what we want to do is take a break for a few minutes, and then we'll get to the good stuff. We can beat them. Thank you.
So go ahead and get up, stretch your legs, take a look around, look at some of Tom's books. And if you can do it, give us a donation or two to help defray the cost of this presentation. Thank you. There's 3,426 counties in the United States. The way we're going to win this back is county by county. Here we are, if you're in Jackson County, you need to work on taking that county back. Here we are in Josephine County, we've got to take that county back. That's how we're going to win this thing. For 20 years, 40 years, 50 years, we've centralized the power. It's slipped away from the local level, and it's gone to Salem, and it's gone to Washington, D.C. We need to strip them of the power and bring it back to the local level, the way this country was set up, at the ward level, at the county level. That's where the decisions need to be made. Can you picture Josephine County controlling all this land area? We wouldn't have a problem funding the sheriff. We wouldn't have a problem having a good economy. And we could build our houses where we wanted to. I'm going to turn this back over to Tom.
All right, you all ready to get busy? Yeah? Because before I'm done, every one of you is going to be involved in this. I'm going to provide to you some very valuable tools for fighting back against this massive assault on our liberties. Now, I know a great many people, really good people, who are looking down in defeat. And they're saying, you know, we can't stop these powerful forces. They're just too big. The republic is dead. And I'm going to tell you something. If you believe that, you're right. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If we wander around looking down in defeat and say the republic is dead, yeah. Now, as I begin, the question each of you must ask yourselves is this: will you join this fight, or will you just wait for someone else to do it? Do you want to be an isolated pessimist or an effective activist? We are not outnumbered, we are out-organized. One of the main issues that our side must face is that we don't really like government. That's why we want it to keep it under control. We don't want it to be so intrusive in our lives. We know we need a government for certain things, but we don't like it. And we want to keep it small and unintrusive. We just want to be left alone. How many times have we said that? We especially don't like getting involved in the local government. So many people, oh, geez, I've got a family to raise, I've got a job to do, I just don't have time. Now, we get really excited about getting involved in a presidential campaign, get involved in that, but getting involved at the local level gives us a headache. Well, think about this. When was the last time many of us really cared about who served on local planning boards? Yet these are the very officials who are deciding the fate of our own property. After witnessing our current election crisis, don't you wish people with our values had an interest in gaining positions on the local board of elections? How about city attorney or state attorney? These are the people who have enforced the COVID lockdowns and will be the ones to enforce climate change lockdowns. And they're the ones that are threatening all of us with lawsuits and on and on and on. Now, we have given the left a pretty clear playing field to organize and seize control. And now we are suffering under the result. For them, no position is too small. No appointed board has been ignored. In fact, they helped create most of them, probably. That's how they are spreading their tyrannical poison. But we're not there. Do you know how many local officials have told me our side is never there? They are surrounded by these guys, these other guys, and if one of our people finally wanders in and tries to say something, then they're just told they're nuts. Stay out of the way. We're not there. And the result, those of us who don't really like government have gotten more government. That's the result of our not wanting to be there. So, how do we effectively fight? First, you have to fully understand how they are imposing these policies, even when the people stand up in opposition, after you've worked to elect good people to office, why do they seem to suddenly change? See that happen? How many times have you been shocked to see these people that you thought were good folks elected to office, and they support a plan to control our energy and eliminate protection of property rights and put on those nasty roundabouts and at every intersection? Well, now, with your help, I'm going to show you exactly how that happens and show you what to do about it. Now, first of all, I need a volunteer. One person. This is really, really difficult to do. You got to have a lot of talent for this. You have to hold these so I don't drop them.
I can do that.
But this is the most important job of the night. Now, your county commission has 3 members, is that correct? I need 3 volunteers. Please, come on up. Going to have an election. You are a county commissioner.
Okay.
You are a county commissioner. You are a county commissioner. Now, what I want you to do, stand over here, please. Now, don't you wish these were your county commissioners? Wow. We elect them, and we're going to run our community the way it needs to be run, in the direction it needs to be run, because they understand, all these policies and how bad they are and so forth. But unfortunately, that's not always the case. I need 5 more volunteers. Hang on to those. Take that off of there. Look at this. You are the Sierra Club. Please stand right back here behind me. You are the World Wildlife Fund. Stand right back over there behind your county commissioners. Stand over there. Okay. And let me tell you something. The World Wildlife Fund is they are the most powerful NGO in the world. And they actually know it's a World Wildlife Fund. And now get behind them over there. So, because this is your position, behind them, hiding in the dark. And the World Wildlife Fund has made the statement that to save the planet, we must reduce beef consumption. Now, the American beef industry has joined arms with the World Wildlife Fund in the Sustainable Beef Roundtable. The Cattlemen's Beef Association is a member of it, and they are dictating sustainable policies for the beef industry, literally to put it out of business. And there they are. And the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, when I went on the attack against this, they did an article, the most pathetic piece of garbage I ever read, and I read a lot, and it said, the title was Why Sustainable? And the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, the #1 cattleman organization in this country to protect our cattle industry, said, well, these folks, consumers are getting much more intelligent and much more interested in how their food is processed. And these folks have the answer to it. And we need a seat at that table so that we can, be part of that, be involved with it. When I read that, I spoke to the New Mexico Cattlemen's Association, told them that story, and I said, the cattlemen that I knew in the past, they didn't want a seat at the table. They had walked in and kicked it over and said, get out. And I pleaded with them to stand up, do something. I said, you need to have, in 10 cities on exactly the same day, in capital cities of the states, you need to have a cattle drive right down Main Street to the thing. And you pass out literature telling them why you're doing this and then have a news conference, you would get international news. And the cattlemen looked at me and went, oh. And that's why they're still losing their business. Who's next?
Judy can have
Judy, you are ICLEI, the International Cattlemen's Association, International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives. Thank you. They helped write Agenda 21 in the first place. They are in almost every community in the world. You are the American Planning Association. Over here, stand back here. Now, these are the major NGOs in the country, in the world, really, in most cases. And they have chapters all over, and they have people who are standing behind your county commissioners, and they are bringing, as I mentioned earlier, they bring in the grants, they bring in the programs, and they are a major, major force. In many cases, I mentioned to you the Piedmont Environmental Council in the town I live in, their members not only have members on the board, they also are, their people are employees at City Hall. The goal is to make everybody think sustainable. These guys set the goals, but we're not done yet. What's that note say? I need 10 more volunteers.
8. Because that's the one that was on.
Oh, that's the one. No, wait a minute. No, we're on.
No, this is.
Was this one? Okay. All right. I need 8 more volunteers. Here we go. Okay. You are the National Governors Association. Now, I want to say this. The National Governors Association is a 501c3 private organization. They advocate smart growth, more government benefits for illegals, work to block workfare requirements for welfare benefits, and so forth. So that's who you are. Yeah. Now, stand over here. Stand over here. Right here. No, the ones with the signs stand over here. You guys come up here. You are the National Association of Counties. You are a 501c3 private organization, established the Center for Sustainable Communities, provided the framework for Bill Clinton's President's Council on Sustainable Development. Nice job. You are the National Conference of State Legislators, a 501c3 organization, works to ensure federal programs are in state policy in a seamless and harmonized manner, creating the appearance that such policies are local rather than federal mandates. Keep lying. Wow. You are the National League of Cities. 501c3 organization. You oppose any restrictions on state governments from taking of private land, supported the Kelo decision that destroyed private property rights in the Supreme Court, and promotes smart growth and sustainable development policies. Step over that way, please. You are the U.S. Conference of Mayors, 501c3 organization, made the UN's Kelo Global Warming Treaty a centerpiece of its agenda, calling on cities to cut carbon footprints based on the treaty, supported the Kelo decision, destroyed property rights, promotes smart growth, sustainable policies, established the Center for Sustainable Communities. Wow. Over there. And you are the Council of State Governments. Oh, a 501c3 organization, promotes worldwide sustainable zoning, promotes modern, uniform, and regulatory status for legislatures. Now, why do I keep saying they're a 501c3 organization? Because people think those are government organizations. And when we elect these folks to represent us, one of the first things most communities do is send those people, our new commissioners, to their meetings. And from the podium, they are hearing these guys. Nature Conservancy, HUD, all those. They are hearing them. Now, they also give them sample legislation. And they have other people there, other county commissioners and stuff there, and they're talking to each other and so forth. And they come home and they are met by representatives of these organizations. That's what they do. And you wonder, eventually, these guys, and here they're telling them, got it all right here in a box for you, got the money for you too. And they begin to believe this is the proper role of government. But these are not government organizations. They are private organizations. Now, it gets worse. All right, I need 10 more volunteers. The Metropolitan Area Planning Council. By 1965, planning councils were formalized. HUD issued grants to assure they enforced federal plans rather than local community decisions. They're dedicated to smart growth, admitting that bike lanes are for the purpose of reducing cars on the road. Now, go back there and stand behind the other ones over there. You are the American Farmland Trust, created to help farmers. Formed in 1980 by farmers. Over the years, their purpose and tactics have changed from protecting farmers to dictating how they farm. In 2007, they joined over 100 sustainable experts like the Nature Conservancy to force expensive, unnecessary, sustainable farming regulations that forces many small farmers out of business. Good job. This is one of my favorite ones. I just learned about them not long ago. Progressive Change Campaign Committee, the PCCC, is a 1 million-member powerhouse pretending to be grassroots-based. It builds progressive power at the federal, state, and local levels. I took this off of their website. They do it by engaging in elections. They created AOC. They trained thousands of state and local candidates and elected dozens of bold progressive leaders now in leadership positions, and the surrounding local officials, they surround them and pressuring them to support and promote the progressive agenda. Go to the back of the line. This is Planned Parenthood, of course. Now, I know you know who they are, but I found this out the other day as I was preparing this. It wasn't from them, but from one of their buddies. It was a article with a headline and analysis. There are no 15-minute cities in a post-Roe America. Eliminate Roe v. Wade, and then there will be no local abortion clinics. Those people, to go kill their babies, will have to drive hundreds of miles. We have got to stop this and get our 15-minute cities in place. You are the National Education Association.
I'm not going to associate with you again.
I need 4 more volunteers. You are the Chamber of Commerce. I need some more volunteers. I need 4 more. Okay. You are BlackRock.
Oh, no.
The richest, most powerful tyrants in the world. They are buying up all of this property at a song. The thing to watch for, right now they're doing, watch out for the word resiliency. Resiliency is being used to, in those areas, like you, where you are in the wildfire areas, and the insurance companies are raising the prices, and they're making it so people can't afford it, or they take the policy away from somebody. BlackRock is coming in and buying up the land for a song. These are the greatest tyrants yet. All right, let's see. I need another. Oh, here you go. You are the Southern Oregon Climate Action Now. And I'll tell you, Oregon has passed legislation for statewide land use planning, and there is 18 statewide goals every county must adopt into their comprehensive plans, and these guys help them do it. Along with this one. I need one more. I need another one. I need a couple more. Oh my goodness. Are you all so scared? I realize this is a really hard job. Going along with that, you are Grants Pass Climate Action Team.
Right.
Same one. Go ahead, take it. Yeah. Okay. So, go to your ditch back there. And you are the Sustainable Rogue Valley. So these are all three groups helping put all that together right here. You are taking the walk of shame. You are the National Association of Realtors. If there is one organization in this country that should be the champion of property rights, it's the National Association of Realtors. What are they going to sell? Well, how are they going to make any money if property rights disappears? But these idiots they have a whole page on their website on sustainable, climate, smart growth, and so forth. When I put an article out about this a few years ago, a realtor in Florida got very concerned, and she called them in their Washington office and wanted to have a conference call with me. They already knew who I was and weren't having any conference call. The National Association of Realtors and the Chamber of Commerce, these other groups, they are not, and actually the National Lawyers Association, these are private organizations, but they control entire industries. And, realtors need to begin to start their own organizations. So do lawyers. So do communities do something about the Chamber of Commerce. Because these people are selling them out, and they need to get away from them. Yes.
You need 6.
All right, what I got? Oh.
6.
Okay, yeah. All right, this is it. I need 6 more. Now, these 6 that I'm going to show you here, these are the main sources of grant programs coming out of the federal government. Where are we? You are the U.S. Forest Service.
Yay!
Oh, yeah. Destroy your own neighborhood.
Already have.
You are the Bureau of Land Management, the BLM, one of the greatest federal tyrants we have. You are the Federal Department of Transportation. You are the EPA.
Thanks.
You are HUD. You are the National Park Service. Now, these organizations are the sources of these federal grants. And all these other ones are working with them to help them write that. And here they are. Take a look at this. This is what your government looks like. Now take it times 10. I was talking to some city council people in Billings, Montana a few weeks ago, and they told me there are over 100 of these organizations that surround them and pressure them. They are all behind them. You guys, you three the county commissioners stand out here. They are all surrounding them. And when you show up by yourself and you go in and say, commissioners, this program that you're putting on me, you're hurting you're damaging my property, or this isn't going to work well for the city, or it's going to hurt businesses or whatever. These guys are behind them going, don't pay attention, they're nuts. Just a conspiracy theorist, don't worry about it. And I think they're also in control of the hatch that you're standing on in case they want to get rid of you. Down you go. This is what we're dealing with. And I realized when I started putting this together, and I've done this a few times, that this helps people really understand what we're up against. That a lot, I can write article after article and tell you all the stuff that is going on, but you have to see it. Does that help? Do you get it? You understand? And keep this in mind. These animals, I'm just ready to talk about animals. These animals back here, they have no interest in you or your wants, your needs, your goals, your dreams. They have an agenda, and they intend to put that in place no matter what. Now, why don't our elected representatives stand with us? That's because we aren't there. Surround the commissioners with all these NGOs, as you see it. Now here, take a watch of this. You guys go to the back. Step forward here. Okay. Why don't your elected officials hear you? They can't even see you. You see that? How are they going to hear you? How are they going to know you're out there? Because these guys have surrounded them. Now, come back up. And here's a very important point. Now, Holly, you are the one member of the commission that is really, really involved in understanding all of this stuff. You are our hero, right? Now, here's what we tend to do with this one person who is voting right, even though she's a minority, getting things in place. We all say, go get them, girl. Yeah, we're going home.
There is that.
What you don't do is do that to the one hero. You give them support. You give them support. Be there for them. Organize, which is what I'm going to teach you in a minute. But they cannot stand alone because they're not going to stick their neck out any more than you are. Why should they if you don't care enough? You understand? Yeah. Okay. Now, one more thing. All of you. Imagine what would happen if we all stood up and said no. Everybody stand up. Stand up.
No.
Everybody say no. No. Louder. No. Louder. No. That is the way your public meetings need to sound. They need to know you're there. There needs to be 100, 200 of you there telling them this is exactly, we're not going away. How many times have I heard from people, well, we had 100 show up, but they didn't listen to us. And what did you do the next day? Well, nothing, it didn't work. Just don't bother. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. The republic is dead. Or you say, no. No. All right. Thank you very much. Applause for these people in this effort. Thank you. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, to win, we have to take the fight to the local level. And we got to build from the bottom up. You are not going to succeed by building from the top, trying to get up to the top. We have to build from the bottom to the top. And if you get good people, if you elect good people, and they're in the local level, they eventually run for a little higher office, a little higher, we affect the top. I've got to explain, you've got to know this. The forces that we are opposing are terrified of you. They are scared to death that you're going to learn that you have the power when you start to use it. I have seen them run when it happens. I had a situation the other night. Did I tell you this story about Minnesota? I know, okay. I don't want to tell you again. We have created, or are in the process of creating, a new tool. And that is going to be a series of questions that you ask your elected officials about these programs that they're putting in place. And first of all, a very valuable activist in California, Dan Titus, a good friend of mine, put together what he called the 244 Project. And he did that because there was a program being put in his community that was yet another one of these radical green things. And the 244 were 244 questions, technical questions about this program. Where did it come from? How is it going to be funded? The fact is that your state legislatures, your county supervisors, your city councils, your local school boards have power to stand up and say no. A lot of them don't understand that. And nullification, things like that, are things they can use. Elected representatives do not have to surrender to the rulings of appointed boards, and these boards were not elected, and they represent no one. Keep that in mind. To win this fight and restore liberty, we must have courageous local elected representatives to do their job. To make sure that happens, it will take dedicated local citizens holding their feet to the fire to assure that they do. And local citizens have a lot more impact and influence on local elected representatives than they could ever have on Congress. So we have to change the debate. Get on the offense. Don't just defend freedom. Demand it. Make it the center of everything that's being done. We have a constitution. We have a history of a nation of freedom. And when these tyrants come in there and they have a better idea, they're going to do it. We have to turn that around. Don't accept it. Don't try to find some way around it. Don't defend liberty. Demand it. And don't listen. Don't shut up. Stay right there in their face. So, now, I want you to think about a couple of things. I'm trying to create tools that are easy for you to use. And one thing is, stop being polite. We're a very polite bunch. We say yes, no, thank you, sorry. They are trying to cut our heads off. Stop being polite. Make those who promote these policies feel pain for their actions, name their names, and make them responsible. I was in Colorado not long ago in a community where some people were telling me about a city councilwoman who got some legislation passed. The oil industry was their main source of income. And what she did was destroying their base of income. And they showed me this chart, the bar graph, and it was going down. I said, put her picture on it. It's her chart. That's what we need to do. Ask your local representatives this question. Name one thing that I can do on my property without your permission. By what right do they have that power? They have absolutely no stake in your property. The number one thing that you need to know to organize is you've got to be there. The second thing you need is you need one individual who's at least who will help organize. Somebody who will stay in communication, somebody who will make phone calls, and put together a team. Now, they don't have to do the team, they don't have to put it all together. They just need to be the communication so that you stay involved. That's the biggest problem we have. I go all over the country speaking on these things, and people get all excited, yeah, we're going to do all that, and then I leave town, and they don't know what to do, and they don't move. I am now working to put together my own team on a national level that will stay in contact with local people to keep going. So I'm working on that. You set a goal to turn your community into what I call a freedom pod. I coined that term a year or so ago, and the idea is focusing on your community. Don't worry about the next community. Worry just your community. Set your goal. You're going to help protect property rights. You're going to help protect local businesses, because local businesses are being killed by these policies while these global corporations eat them alive. And you can get policies together that will protect those local businesses, and also your own personal freedoms, your choices in life. Those are the goals you need to work for. Now, one of the things I run into is that too many people believe that they have to save the republic in one day. You know, we didn't get it all done. This one is not going to happen. That's not true. What you need to build on, you can't do everything at once. You have to build on it. Start very carefully, very simply. Above all, I've told you all about Agenda 21, the Great Reset and everything. Don't go rushing into your city council and your county commission and say, you are imposing Agenda 21, because they're going to throw you out. You do that. What you do is you look at the actual policy that you're opposed to. What is it going to do for you or to you, and why are you opposed to it? And go to there. I had a group of people up in Idaho. And we had a Zoom call, had 8 people on the Zoom call. They wanted to do something, wanted to organize. And I asked them, what are the important issues there? I got 8 different answers. I got gun control, I got abortion, I got the education system, all that. And, what are you going to focus on? You can't solve all those in one day. And then this one lady said that there is this organization in town, a leftist organization, that is putting all kind of pornographic artwork all over town. And I said, there you go. That would get people organized who aren't even part of our movement or anything like that. They'd just be upset about it. And that's what they decided to do. Work on it and get a small victory. And once you have that small victory, you can build on it on something else. Don't try to take on the tough stuff until you're ready. Now, that one person, that one organizer, just kind of pulls people together and keeps you, maybe put some meetings together, keep you organized. Now, from that, we have to build a team. We need to build a permanent infrastructure. What we do now is we have people who are concerned about things, and then they'll see in the newspaper or something that the council or some group is doing some crazy, wacky new program, and you're sitting there going, do you hear about that? You know anything about that? Where'd that come from? Who's behind that? By the time you ask every one of those questions, they've already got it in place. You need to be working from a permanent infrastructure. I said earlier today that the biggest problem we have is they have an agenda and they intend to accomplish it, and we don't. We just go, well, I'm just living life. We need to get a goal, we need to have an agenda, and we need to never back off of it and keep coming. And the first thing you have to do is you've got to know who your enemy is. Who are you dealing with? All of those people up here. Who are they? What's behind them? Every one of those groups practically are national, at least. Some are international organizations, or they're chapters thereof of them. They have a history. They have done things that promoting other programs and stuff. Where's their money coming from? Who is their leadership? You need to research and get into that, who they are. And one of the number one things you do is get out the comprehensive plan of the community and start going through it line by line. How many of you like to do research? Really enjoy it. Just dig it in, get in there. You are vital, valuable people in this room, because that you can get in there, you're going to find out who the enemy is, and you're going to supply us with that. And one of the things to look for as you're going through all that, and you're looking in your comprehensive plan, look for one single word in there about protection of private property rights. It's not there. And sustainable development programs cannot be imposed if property rights are protected. The second team that we need are what we call the watchers. They're 4 or 5 people, 3 or 4, whatever, who volunteer to go to every single public meeting. And all you have to do is sit and listen. Watch what's going on. You will begin to figure out who the players are, people on the council who are leading things, who the NGOs are. You may even overhear them talking about a plan. Hey, Charlie, you know that thing we were talking about the other day, the da-da-da-da-da? Going to start it next month. Now you know ahead of time, before, and you can begin to organize to fight it before it gets done. The watchers. Number 3, what we call the agitators. These are basically the spokesmen, the people who are going to represent you. in these meetings and talk. And they need to be your best speakers, but they're going to use the information that the researchers and the watchers came up with to present. And I would recommend that if you had 4 or 5 of these, that you don't have them all representing the same organization. Get some different organization names, and then it makes it look like your movement is bigger. So, and when you go in there, you don't go in and start screaming at them. You speak in a very intelligent, calm way with all of your facts. I'm here to tell you that this is the program that you're trying to put in place, and this is what's wrong. I have these details, and so forth. So be reasonable as you do that. Number 4, the victims. The people who are the victims of these policies. They are the ones that the elected officials and the NGOs don't want to hear from. Their worst nightmare is the victims get in there. People who have lost their property, people who've had their business destroyed, whatever the case may be. And here's the other thing, how you build your movement. When you've done your research of the policies and so forth, you look at that comprehensive plan or other plans coming in, you will see where the next round of policy is going to be implemented. You can go into that neighborhood and knock on doors and tell the people there about what's coming. Let them know what's happening there. For example, let's say you were in a big city where you have a lower income neighborhood where minorities are living and so forth. And these are people who own homes. A lot of people there do. People have their own businesses, little mom and pop shops, laundromats, things like that, restaurants. And they're going to come in and tear all that down and build this new Taj Mahal, spanking new part for the city. Well, are they going to, how are these people going to live? They aren't going to afford to live there. Are their businesses going to be featured in it? No, it's going to be global corporations and so forth. And go down, and this is a way that you can recruit people to your movement. And the last thing that they want to hear from are those people. So get to the victims, find it out. 5th thing, the media team. Now, I always joke at this. Every time I say that, every eye in the place rolls. Our media is all a bunch of left-wing idiots. They're not going to listen to us. I know. Nobody's been a bigger victim of it than me. I've been attacked on the front page of the Sunday New York Times. But if you have 2 or 3 people that are bringing information, keep in mind, in most cases, now this is changing with the media is changing because newspapers aren't as prominent today as they have been in the past, and we have news, TV and radio as well. But many times the reporter who is reporting on what happens at city council, that's his beat, and that's his job. And he's got to be careful what he does. He could lose contact with them, communications with them, if he does too many radical things to them. But you can take them information and talk to them and say, hey, here's some stuff. Just check it out. This is what's going to happen. You may eventually begin to be a reliable news source for him. You never know where it's going to lead, but at least you open up that line of communication. The other thing that's happening now, let's see here. Richard, are you still here? Yeah, there you are. All right. What I was going to tell you about was a paper. We got people now starting their own newspapers, and it's working. And Richard, has his own here. Good? Yeah. Now, yours is bi-monthly, right? Bi-monthly, you put it out, yeah. And you get, these articles on the front are local stuff, and then you put, there are lots of us who write articles on a national level that you can use to fill in and get that kind of information in there. My experience has been with a gentleman in Virginia who's put this paper out called the Northern Neck. That's what it's called down there where he lives. And he started out with putting it out in his county once a month, and he's got advertising, the same as Richard has, and so forth. And he would bring it to 7-Elevens and filling stations, places like that, for the stack up, and people would come and take it. And it's gotten to the point where people are waiting for him when he gets there. They want to see this. And he is now in 3 counties, puts out 85,000 copies a month, putting that out. So this begins to turn it around. I'll tell you, it really startled me. I was speaking in Ohio, and I had my table out there like I do here, and a lady came up to me and she said, "Can I put some of these on here?" She had a paper, her own paper. I said, "Yeah, sure, put them right there on the corner." I was shocked as people walked in the door. They went, "Here it is, here it is." You know, they were so excited about this paper. It's working. This is a thing to do. And so, yeah, communicate with your local media, but you can also somebody can start to work on this. You can raise money for it by advertising, and you can charge for it if you want, but I think it's probably better if you can get it out to more people. But the media team, the social media team, if you've got some young people who just love getting involved on the internet and so forth, this is a good thing for them. Set up a web page or a social media page, and as you begin to work on these things, this is a place where you can place your information. I have an organization down in Shreveport, Louisiana, that is magnificent in what they have done. And what was happening there was Shreveport was beginning to expand its jurisdiction into their township, and these guys are trying to stop it. And they put together flyers with one of the things, it's Caddo Lake there, and they took pictures of private boat docks, and people, they were going to lose these. They weren't going to be allowed to have them. And they went around door to door, and they delivered flyers showing that they weren't going to be allowed to have these boat docks. They began to show people you're already a victim, and it hasn't even happened yet. And they put those on the social media page as well. They now have 4,000 people on the social media page, and they have 100 to 200 people show up at every single city council meeting. And a councilman who tried to deride them and pay no attention to them, you're never going to have any influence here, all of a sudden saying, "What can I do to help?" This is what happens when you are there. That is vital for you to understand. Be there and let them know that, hey, if they're going to do this, you're going to face us. That's the image that you've got to build there. Now, you have new people who have never been involved before. You can't take those people and say, "You go talk to city council." They're not going to. They're intimidated. They don't know how to do that. But new people, we've got millions of new people now who are joining us because of what's happening, but they don't know what to do. You know what they can do? They can warm seats at City Hall. They could be the 100 people there. They could carry signs or hold signs at a rally if you had it. Various other things like that, where they don't have to do anything, but just kind of hold a sign or just be there. They begin to observe you and what you're doing, and they want to say, "Hey, I like doing that. I'm a researcher. I like to do that." That kind of thing. You can begin to pull them in and make them more active. But that's how you get them started. That's how you build your movement. Now, some of the tools that we can use. One of the things that I suggest is build a grading system on your local officials. Look at the policies that they've put in place and label them 1 to 10. 1 is a total tyrant, 10 is a freedom's hero. And look at what those policies are. Then you look at your elected officials and see how they voted on them. 1 to 10. I've never met an elected official yet who wanted to be a 2. So you begin to put the pressure on them that way. I have a lady down in North Carolina who she was worried because she was trying to put her Freedom Pod together, and she showed me the list she had. She's like, "I can't get people to sign up. I don't know." And I got up and spoke, and I brought this idea up, and it caught on to them. It just seemed to click in their minds. And she told me a week later they had gone into the comprehensive plan and they found 10 items to go after on that. And I said, don't do it all at once. Do it one at a time. Hit them with it this time, And then when that argument is all over, whatever it's going to be, hit them with the next one, hit them with the next one. Keep coming at them. And that's what they're doing. The ninth thing to do, build a campaign. We've got to get good people elected. Now, what people have been telling me while I've been here, you guys are doing that. You're doing a great job at it. You're getting good people elected. I applaud you for that. That makes it a whole lot easier to get going. But we've got to keep it up. Don't ever back off and say, well, we did that. Keep going. Get aggressive. And one of the things we need to organize are precinct organizations. Now, in most cases, and I won't say for your county because I've met some good Republican leaders here while I'm here, but in most counties, the Republican Party is terrible at this. And they, a precinct captain is basically the trail boss that's getting the herd into market. All you're doing is in your neighborhood, knocking on doors, getting to know your neighbors, bringing them information, and knowing who the good people are, and on election day, do everything you can to herd them in. And get that together. If you do this right, candidates will come for you, looking at you. Can you help me? And that, you can say, hey, what's your position on this? You want my support? That's what I'm going to do. This is how you begin to build a freedom pod and have it be effective. But you have to be there, and you've got to support the good ones that are there, as we showed earlier. If we elect dedicated freedom advocates to city councils and county commissions who fully understand how these private NGO forces operate, then we can stop them at every turn. Keep this in mind. The only reason those private NGOs, all of those people surrounding your county commission, the only reason they have any authority at all is because your elected representatives give it to them. That's why I kept saying the 501c3 organizations, they're not government. They are private groups with a private agenda. So they, your county supervisors, county commissioners, and just say, get out if you want. They don't have to deal with them. And that is what they're terrified of, that you'll learn that and do that. Every one of these tactics work to address government overreach, including your school boards. We have now, the victories we're having mostly across the country is in school boards. That's because we are dealing with angry moms and what they're doing to their children. They have passion, they have determination, they have rage at what they're doing. We need to get the same attitude about people trying to take your private property, people trying to destroy your business, take away your liberty. We have to get that passion in the city councils and the county commissions. That is the way that we're going to turn this around. So, yes, we are facing a determined enemy that's dedicated like no generation of Americans has ever faced before, But our Constitution and the republic that it created are not dead. They are suffering from neglect. But how do we stop them? Get equally determined to win, to restore our republic that has been the envy of the world. You can keep trying to saw off the limbs, or you can begin to destroy it at the roots. But keep it simple, one small victory at a time. As I said before, you cannot save the republic in one day. And don't get discouraged if you try to do something and it doesn't work. If you succeed in having 100 people show up at city council, even though they didn't go with what you wanted, that's a victory. You've got 100 people. Grab it. Get them involved. Next time, make it 2. Don't back off because you didn't achieve what you set out to do. It doesn't happen overnight. So, and we're working across the country. I mentioned earlier, I have been heavily involved in South Dakota, Iowa, now North Dakota, and I'm going to Minnesota here in a couple weeks. And we are building freedom pods there. We are building action. People standing up this carbon capture pipeline, Vanguard and BlackRock and several other These massive corporations are getting arrogant, and they think they're just going to push this thing through. Private companies putting a private project together, wanting to take private land to do it. And they're trying to get the Iowa Utilities Board and the South Dakota Utilities Board and stuff to give them the power of eminent domain, and where they just take their property. They've gotten arrogant about it. And just recently, you may have heard a farmer there in South Dakota, Gerald Bosley, who's been a big opponent to the whole thing. He's been vocal. He's got a sign on his property, "Stay out," with the carbon capture pipeline. They literally accused him of trying to threaten people from Vanguard, what they called surveyors, coming on his property without any invitation, without his permission. And they said he threatened their lives. He did not. But the next week, they showed up with armed guards, armed sheriff deputies, and a big machine that went into his property without his permission, and they damaged his soy crop, they damaged his corn crop, and they dug 90-foot holes down into the ground to it. And they had no explanation as to why that was. Well, just supervisors, you know. And they thought by doing this, they were going to intimidate him, and they were going to intimidate other farmers to shut up and just play ball. It completely backfired. It enraged the farmers. They immediately got several thousand signatures on a petition demanding the state legislature protect their private property, and they stormed the state house and demanding help. And they haven't achieved it all yet, but Vanguard is scared. We know it. It didn't work. They tried to be bullies. So this is what we need to do. It is working. Now I'm starting to work with property owners in many other states to use the same tactics to stop their taking of vital farmland for these massive wind and solar farms, and which are destroying their private property and their homes and everything. So we need to take the fight to the local and the state levels. We can no longer focus on trying to wake up the sheep. We've got to wake up more lions. We've got to take action. Change the debate to attack anti-freedom policies, expose non-governmental organizations. These guys are carpetbaggers. They call them stakeholders. You are the stakeholders, not them. You're the one that has to live under what they put on you. They're carpetbaggers, and they're hiding in the shadows, and they're dictating policy. They're forcing elected officials to be we have to force them to be personally responsible for their actions and organize to assure that we can elect leaders who promote and defend the principles of freedom. Do not accept a local official saying to you, "Oh, that's just the way it's done." If they say that, they are playing ball with the agenda. And the other thing they like to say is, well, that's just a conspiracy theory. I think I've pretty much proved to you that's not true. Build the permanent infrastructure, then every time the NGOs come up with a new plan, you won't be caught flat-footed. You will have your organization ready to immediately jump into action and smash it. And you don't need a majority of citizens behind you. You have to have, if you want to, you can have a major impact with 15 or 20 people, really. But man, look what we got here now. Think what we can do. But you've got to stay organized in that permanent infrastructure. Just keep in mind, our founding father, Sam Adams, he declared war on the King of England. He was almost by himself when he did that. And then he went to work to get others to join him. And look what he accomplished. He won. Do not look down in defeat. Think of Sam Adams. And what did Sam Adams say? It does not take a majority to prevail, but rather an irate, tireless minority keen on setting brush fires of freedom in the minds of men. Now, don't set those brush fires in the woods. We can do that too. The red wave that we all dreamed would happen in the last election and didn't, it will happen because you make it happen, one step at a time. That is our task to save liberty. Please join me and let's go get them. Thank you.
Now you know. Now you can't play ignorant. So there's an action plan laid out before us. Like I said, you can ignore politics, but it's not going to ignore you. You guys, if anybody can donate, that would help defray the cost. Can I get some volunteers to help us put these chairs up onto the racks? And I want to keep this going. There's no reason why we can't do these meetings time and time again. It just takes people getting involved and people want to hear this stuff. So get involved with the local government, go to these county commissioner meetings. You are the difference. Americans Freedom Force is right there. It's you. It's you. Nobody else can do it. Don't wait for somebody else. Get out there and get involved. God bless y'all.